Welcome to Operational Harmony, Balancing Business and Mental Well-Being, a podcast with honest discussions about professional life and mental well-being in a natural conversational way. Your host is Nikki, founder of Nikki's Office, where she supports entrepreneurs through operations, systems, and strategy. And now, let's hear from our guest.
Thank you for having me on the podcast, Nikki. I really appreciate being here. So my name is Alexandra Reid. I go by Lexi for short. And as we chatted with a little bit before, I am what I call myself a creative wellness coach. And what I mean by that is I use art therapy inspired exercises to help women in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math, deal with symptoms of burnout, help to reduce stress through simple creative exercises. And the reason I got into this is because I worked in science. I did the whole academic ladder. I did the bachelor's, the master's, the PhD, the postdoc. And after that, I decided I didn't want to be at the bench doing experiments anymore. And I went to work for a not-for-profit. After that, I went and worked for the federal government. Then I went to corporate. And now I'm living the entrepreneurial life, being a coach. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy to chat more about it as well with you.
Okay. So when you said you worked for the government, you are not American, right?
Correct. I am Canadian. I am currently based in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. So north of you. No worries.
So after doing all that with your education, what made you decide that's not what you wanted to do anymore?
What's interesting is having been in science, a lot of my colleagues and I, we joked about it being called research because it was about redoing it all the time, right? Like you'd set up the perfect experiment and it would fail. And you thought you had all the conditions correct. And then you set it up again and it would fail for a different reason. And you do that enough times and you get the small eureka moments that keep you going. But after a while, I just thought, you know what? I don't think I want to be in the trenches doing what we call the wet lab work anymore. And so that's what led me to working for a not-for-profit and then working with the federal government. I was actually a grant reviewer. So I got to help fund other professors all across Canada to work with different companies on bringing, it was a collaboration grant. So I got to read a ton of different things. And that's what led me to actually my corporate gig. So I worked for a consulting firm, helping them write proposals. And then from that, I got into doing quality and regulatory. That's where I experienced my taste of burnout, which I do not recommend. During the pandemic, do not recommend burnout. During the pandemic, like everybody else, I had to work from home. I also had 2 kids at home, so I had to deal with school for them. One was middle school, one just started high school. But as mentioned, I was working for this engineering consulting firm, and we just landed a very big contract from the Canadian government to develop and produce emergency ventilators. And I don't know if you remember the early days of the pandemic, there weren't vaccines. So we thought we needed these ventilators or people were going to die. So our company had to get up to speed super fast. And basically we started with the designs on paper all the way to getting them built and tested and in the hands of the Canadian public eventually. So my department being quality and regulatory, we worked very closely with everybody across engineering, manufacturing, and we were working 24/7 pretty much. And between trying to balance home life, work life, and I'm working in my bedroom literally, because my husband had the other room to work in. And I just found I was losing myself. I wasn't sleeping. It felt like I started being on autopilot about everything. I got very snappy with everybody. Like it was like I just had one nerve left and everybody was on it. As you can see in my background, I'm also an artist. And I found during that time, like creativity used to be my outlet. But when I got that burned out, I'd just walk into my studio and pick stuff up and put it down. And I couldn't even conceive of working on a painting. Everything felt so overwhelming. And I was just totally checked out. Like I was disengaged. And it wasn't until I was on like yet another umpteenth Zoom call where I just started making patterns in the margin of my meeting notes. And I'm not a big doodler to start with. It's funny, I'm artistic, but I was never a doodler as a kid. Somehow that act of making these repetitive patterns, I found it started to de-stress me. And so I thought, okay, there must be a reason for this. So I started looking into art therapy, and there's a lot about sensory reset through repetitive mark making. And I thought, hey, this is something. And so I started exploring it more. And then I stumbled onto coaching. And I love the idea of, much as I liked art therapy, it was very past focused. It was very going backwards and diving into the dark parts of yourself. And I thought, I want to be positivity. I want to look forward. I want to set goals. And so what I wanted to do was try to marry the visual journaling aspects of art therapy with the positive mindset of coaching, being present, setting goals, working towards it. And I'm a swimmer by background, lifeguard. And so what I think of it is therapy is like you're in the pool and you're drowning and you just need help getting out of the pool. Whereas coaching, you know how to swim and you want to get better at swimming. You want to refine your stroke. You want to get faster, better, optimized. And so what I wanted to do was bridge these two things together. And I came up with creative wellness coaching. And the reason I chose wellness is because it's proactive, right? It's not like when you work in medical devices, there's always that trade-off between, is it a true medical device or is it a wellness device? A wellness device is your Fitbit, your Garmin. It's helping you stay healthy. Whereas a medical device is usually treating you, diagnosing you. Again, I didn't want to be doing therapy. I didn't want to be diagnosing somebody. I didn't want to be treating somebody. I wanted to work on somebody who was healthy, but beginning to be not healthy. And that's why I wanted to use creativity to create wellness. And that's how I started building that coaching business.
I remember when we did our 15-minute meeting, I was like, holy cow, my sister would kill to have the organization you have. And I still think she would, because holy cow, you are organized.
I often joke my studio is like that cross between, like, I know in the US they've got Dick Blick. So like Dick Blick art supplies and Michael's the craft supplies with a mix of Home Depot. And because all these containers that I've got behind me with all my art supplies are pretty much from Home Depot and the organization aisle. And it's because when you're making art and you're in the flow, you just want to grab stuff, but then you can't find it afterwards. So this marries again a bit of my science art brain. It's like I like to know where my stuff is, but then I put it all in front of me and I can just grab it at will when I'm making something.
I also complimented your pictures last time and I see they're still up and they still look really cool.
Yeah, there's a bit more stuff in front of them because I've been having to clear out some attic space and move things around. So I found all these old frames that don't have canvas on them. I'm like, oh, I have all this other stuff I could be covering and making things. And I think that's true with artists, is that you're always inspired, which, except if you're burned out, as I found out. I have to caveat that. You're always inspired until you're not.
Yeah, burnout tends to burn out the creativity, the life. It burns out everything out of you.
Yeah.
But burnout does all the things. Like, it's just like with the mental health. It is a mental health problem, but it's just like other ones where you go into a deep depression and all of a sudden you don't feel this, you don't know, you can't stay awake, you don't know anything. And burnout is basically depression because of your job. And you're at the end of your rope and you can't do anymore. Coming back from it takes work. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just go through it and I'll be fine once I get to the other side. But if you're not doing the wellness tips, if you're not doing those little things that could help you, if you're not taking a break of some kind, you're going to break and you're going to end up in a hospital somewhere absolutely out of your mind because you broke yourself. And with burnout, it's easy to see the pattern. It's from the outside.
From the outside, yes. I was going to say.
I'm not saying at all from the inside, but from the outside, it's easy to see that you can see the progress of it. Some people are trained to and will go, hey, you look like you're burned out. Maybe you should do something about that. You have other people who aren't trained but will try to act as a friend and go, hey, Susie, let's go out for drinks tonight because you obviously need to chill a bit, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's the person who has to notice it and want to change it. Again, with any other mental health problem, you don't get to just go, oh, it'll be fine, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Guess what the definition of insanity is? It is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you are burnt out and you're like, I'm going to go to work still, I'm going to go do this other thing still, sure, you can do that. That's an option. It's not going to slide you towards the better, though.
No, I think of burnout like when they talk about the boiling the frog.
Yes, that's exactly what it does.
Yeah.
If you put a frog into hot water, it's going to jump out. If you put a frog in some cool water and slowly let it slowly start to turn up the water, the heating, then you can boil a frog from being alive and just letting them chill because they're like, oh yeah, it's getting warm. And by the time they realize that it's too hot, they're dead.
And if you think of a lot of things, once that happens, is you can't come back from. You think of boiling an egg, you stop boiling the egg, it doesn't go back to being a raw egg. It's boiled. So there's you can recover from burnout. You aren't boiled forever, but there's a lot of things, as you said, you need to address. You need to break that pattern or it will break you. I've had clients who have had their hair fall out, their fingernails start falling out, like literally getting physically sick. And they thought, oh, maybe I'm deficient in vitamins. Maybe I've got something. And no, it was just simply their body was saying enough is enough. And we're voting to stop. And you can come with us or we're going to stop without you. And
that gets scary because you can have a heart attack. Your kidneys can shut down. All of that stuff can happen only because of the burnout, not even because of the way you eat or anything, because most people who are running on burnout are running on McDonald's or some other fast food because they don't have the energy to be cooking batch meals for themselves through the week. Or they're that mom who is got the job, has got the 3.28 kids, has to do everything, feels like they have to be super mom because everybody else at the soccer field's mom is excellent. Why are you going to show up as a mess? Guess what? They're probably stay-at-home moms. They have
like
help.
Right?
Or their husband is actually helping and not being a hindrance. Now, that being said, I am all for whoever's doing whatever, you do it together. The female shouldn't be doing all of the chores in the house, but neither should the man. And there are different situations and different things, but you do what works for your relationship, and nobody else should be able to tell you differently. Now, if it isn't actually working and you're just pretending it is, that's a conversation you have to have with your partner. Because pretending one thing and doing another is completely not okay.
No, and they definitely say, no, there's a certain generation they're starting to call the sandwich generation where, you're caring for children still of any age, and then you've got aging parents. So now you are stuck literally in the caregiving sandwich and you're burning on both ends because you're helping everybody.
Right
yeah. You're helping everybody but yourself because women quite often put themselves last. I don't know if that's just cultural, just social conditioning, but we've been trained to give. There's a great children's book called The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a picture book. It's lovely. But there's a little boy who has this tree, and the tree loves the little boy. And the boy asks for fruit, and the tree gives the fruit. And then the boy asks for the next thing, and he gives the leaves. And then the boy asks for the next thing, and he gives the lumber until basically there's no tree left. And it's the giving tree. And the tree is given all that the tree can give until there's nothing left to give. And it's one of those, I remember reading it as a kid, and it didn't impact me as much as a child as it did until I was a parent and being further in my career and having a lot more balls in the air to juggle. And they talk about which are the rubber balls and which are the glass balls, but when you're juggling all the balls, you don't have time to figure out which balls are which. They're like, let the rubber ones bounce. You're like, I don't know which balls I can let go right now. I'm too busy juggling them. Yeah.
There's also the rock jar. Have you seen the video for that one?
No, I have not.
So this professor gets in front of a class of students, and he's got this kind of tall, wide jar, and he has two of them. In the first one, he just puts in the little things, and then he puts in the medium things, and then he tries to fit in and jam in the big stuff. And it doesn't work very well because if you're putting things in your life in the wrong order, they won't fit. And then he went to the second jar and he put all the big rocks in. And he was like, and those would be your house, your car, your job, your kids, the big things that matter in life. And then he asked the class, is this jar full? And they're like, yeah, because it is full of the rocks. And then he puts in some pebbles. And the pebbles represent some of the things you have to do in your life, pay the electric, and those go to your kids' recitals, that kind of thing. And so you put those things in. And then he put in, I think then it's sand, right? And that fills in all of the crevices, right? That's all the tiny stuff. I have this project going, I have that thing going, or whatever. It's the itty bitty things in your life that take up a lot of time. It's the small and simple things. So now you would think that's full, right? Except now he takes water and puts water in there and fills it. Now you can't put anything else in this jar. Now you have a full life. You have all the big things, you have all the medium things, you have all the small things. Plus you have the extras, the water of life, whatever that is for you. And so now you see if you put things in the right order, you can get everything in. And it works well because it's balanced. Now, if you were to say put in the big rocks, so I have all my big things that I want in my life, and then you just put in the sand, could you still fill the jar? Yes. Are those medium-sized things going to be left out? Yes. Because if you fill the thing with sand right after you put the big ones in, then there's no room for the middle things. And you can still put the water in there, but what's the point? Because half your life is missing if you don't have those medium-sized things. So I believe I did a whole podcast on that before.
I love the visual to go with it too. Yeah, I bet.
There's a video online of a college professor doing it, and that's where I got that from. And I was just like, you know what? That struck a chord in my head. If I'm only ever doing the big things and then the small things, there's a problem because I'm missing out on different stages of what I could be doing. I am forgetting things. I'm not completing things to the best of my ability if I'm leaving pieces of myself on the table instead of in the jar of life. But there are different ways to look at every situation, and you have to pick the way that works for you. The giving tree is the perfect example of a people pleaser. They will give and they will give and they will give everything until one day somebody does the tiniest thing and they blow up and that wasn't even a big deal. What are you so upset about? Guess what? They're not upset about that little thing. They're upset about every single strike of the match that came before it. His tiny little thing just happened to set the thing ablaze. And good Lord, don't let the quiet person get set ablaze because everybody's going to regret it. They have heard things that nobody thinks they have heard. Believe me, I know a lot more about things and people than I should. Ever.
And it's always the quiet ones, they say.
Yeah. It's because you don't notice the quiet ones. They can be in the room, but they're so quiet, you're not paying attention to them. I was like that through middle school and most of high school. I was the quiet person. I knew who was pregnant and when. Before most of the popular kids did. Because I could hear them standing in line behind me talking about crap.
And you got to be observant, right? Because you were on the outside, and that's what you do when you're on the outside. You observe and and you remember. And it's definitely.
I was on the news on accident.
Oh. How did that happen?
So I went to high school in Southern Maryland. My high school name is Patuxent High School. I was part of the first graduating class in 99. So this happened way back in the 90s. Obviously, I am old. Get over it. But I think it was my senior year. Might have been my junior year. I don't remember. One of the 2 years. It's been over 20 years, people. Get over it. I can't remember the exact time it was. But these kids, obviously, they had their license. And we had parking spots at school, so they were leaving the school. And one of the kids was trying to pass another kid, and the kid wouldn't let them pass. He would speed up to going as fast as the other kid. And then when the kid was like trying to get back behind him, he slowed down. and somebody in a U-Haul was coming in the other direction, and there was an accident. Everybody in both vehicles ended up dying.
Oh, wow.
The people in the car died on scene. The guy in the U-Haul lived for a couple of days or something, and then he passed away as well. I came back. I had heard about the accident. I came back from wherever I was. I was not part of the popular crew. Do you think this attitude would be popular? Absolutely not. But I knew the people because the quiet person knows everybody. Did they talk to everybody? No, but they know everybody, even if it is from over there. And so I knew them. One of the girls I had conversation with. So I went to the site where the cross was and stuff. And they had just added the name of the U-Haul driver to it. And I went to pay my respects because I didn't want to be there when everybody else was there, but I also wanted to make sure that I was acknowledging what happened to them. And so I'm standing there and I'm just kind of, okay, now what do I do now that I'm staring at the cross? What am I supposed to do? Oh my God, I don't know what to do. And all of a sudden there was a news person in my face. And I was just like, okay, what do you want? Because Southern Maryland doesn't get that much attention. Most people who aren't from St. Mary's or Calvert County are not known throughout the world. But in this case, we had the news everywhere, and everybody was pissed because why are you interested now that there's this, but you're not interested when we do, which was a fair assessment because some of the other schools around the area other counties would get attention if they won the football thing or whatever. We never got that kind of attention. We only got the attention this time because there was this accident where 3 students and a guy died.
But it's what they call, if it bleeds, it leads. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Yeah.
So this news person comes up to me and he's, can I interview you? And I'm like, you know what? I'm in just enough of a mood. Let's go. He was like, do you know what happened here? And I'm like, I know what I've been told. I don't know if it's the truth because I'm not the one hanging out with the cops. That's not my thing. And so he was like, what do you think the consensus is at your school about what happened? And I was like, you know what? This was a tragedy. This did not need to happen. This should not have happened. There are students and teachers and parents that are grieving the loss of those kids, and it shouldn't have happened. That guy should have let them back in. I don't care what his excuses are. I don't care if they were both in on it and they were racing, or if they weren't actually racing and the other guy was just trying to pass because he was going too slow. I don't care. Nobody cares at this point. I was like, but that guy is probably not welcome at school. He should probably not go back because I have heard things and I don't think it's a safe place for him. He should probably not go back because those kids were very popular. And that guy, while he was popular, he wasn't as popular, and everybody was turning against him at that point. Do I remember names? No. Would I say the names if I did remember them? Absolutely not. That tragedy happened because of dumbness. Even if that guy is still around, because I don't know anything at this point, then he doesn't deserve to be bombarded now. It's been over 20 years.
And he's had to live with that every day. That's the other
torture.
thing is
torture.
He made a decision, was poor, and he has to live with the consequences, which are awful and horrific.
Yes. Yeah. It was something that didn't need to happen. And I told the news anchor, was like, I have also heard that there are some people who are having problems with the news coverage. And I was like, yeah, you idiots only come here for a tragedy.
Like vultures,
and,
yes.
You know, you're here because these people died. But did you know that the ROTC is one of the best in 3 counties? Did you know that the band is the biggest in 3 counties? Did you know that we have honor roll students who have been recognized in the National Honor Society thing, whatever that thing's called? Like, there are people who do good things here, and you're only interested now because people died. You weren't interested when anybody was doing anything good. So I don't particularly think that the news anchor should be hanging out at the school. And I would really like it if you stopped hanging out here. I believe I said that out loud. I don't know. It's been a few years. I could have just said that in my head. Some idiot will find it if they get that interested. But I didn't even see it air on the news, but parts of it did. And people came up to me the next day and were like, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. And I was like, What did I say that you liked? I don't know what they aired. I have no idea. So I had teachers and students coming up to me saying that they appreciated that I was willing to say something. And I have no idea
No, and it's
still.
brave of you to be honest about it. Like you could have said platitudes, but you told them what people wanted them really to know. So I think that's very brave that you did that.
Yeah. I tend to be honest. People call me blunt. I'm not the blunt that's going to tell you that you're fat. I don't do that kind of thing. That's not the kind of blunt I am. My blunt comes more in if somebody asks me a question, I'm going to answer it. Whether or not you like it is up to you. You're the one who asked the question. If you ask a question, you should probably be prepared for anything, which is why I don't do interviews, because I'm not prepared for anything if asking a question, except for you to have an attitude, maybe. But that leads to the part where I tell people I don't like being yelled at because my attitude could come out when none of us want that.
Unfiltered is how we'd call that. Unfiltered. Yes.
I have a couple filters that I could unleash and people would not be happy and I wouldn't even have to physically touch them. Now that final physical thing would only happen if you hit me first. You hit me first, all bets are off and I can finish the fight and I'm guaranteed I'm going to. So there's that. I have learned over the years that people who will abuse you, once they hit you, you need to walk away. Because you're going to fight back and then they're going to become the victim.
Or it'll escalate.
Escalates, yeah.
Yeah, the eye for the eye scenario doesn't end well for anybody, typically.
No. Not only that, but say I am a female. Let's not get it twisted. But say I'm a female who is with somebody, with a male, right? That male is usually bigger and stronger than the female because that's how freaking natural science works. And if he does something to her and she tries to retaliate, how much is she actually going to be able to hurt him? And how much worse is it going to be for her if he decides, oh, you thought you had an attitude. Now let's fix that. It's just best to get out, get away, call the cops, do whatever you can. If the dude ends up being a cop, go to internal affairs, go where you need to go. I believe in the good cops. My grandfather was a cop in Boston. He did his job. He did it well. So if you are a good cop, you should have your job. If you're a bad cop and you ignore people or you end up in domestic violence situations yourself, you're not a person who should be a cop. Thin blue, nothing. You shouldn't be any of it. Same with the military. You are trained to fight. Your spouse probably isn't. You hitting them, there's no excuse for that. But we have gone way off topic.
Well, I think a lot of what you were talking about just now was to do with boundaries. We started off talking about burnout and people pleasing. And one of the ways to overcome people pleasing is just learning to establish boundaries and then have people respect them, right?
Mhm.
But you need to respect your own boundaries. You can't say, this is where I draw the line, and then you step over your own line and you continue to step. Then people realize the line isn't really a line. It's just a suggestion, right? A lot of that's where I would say a lot of burnout, it comes from not respecting your own boundaries and not having boundaries, full stop, for sure.
Yeah. The other thing is you have to learn the difference between saying something's a boundary and having a boundary that, one, is ethical and two, that is correct for you. So for me, I have a boundary where I don't let people touch me. I may give somebody a half hug if they're prepared for it, or if I know that they are a person who enjoys hugs. I will give a half hug because you're not pinning my arms. Don't grab me like that. And people seem to be very happy when I do that because it's very rare. And it's only to the people I know very well are not trying to be fake with me and who I know really appreciate hugs and just look like they need it that day. I am not an everyday hugger. On the other hand, I have my friend Kim, who last night is, as an example, we went to a church function and we went to somebody's house and they have vaulted ceilings. like very vaulted ceilings. And so everybody talking was echoing back down. I already have sensitivity with sound, so I was already done with it just from the volume. But then to have it echo back, I was hearing like in quadruplet everything everybody was saying. And gotta say, that's not the best way to hear things. I was completely overwhelmed being there for 20 minutes. I was ready to go. We didn't just stay 20 minutes, we stayed a lot longer. When we got home, Kim came in, she knocked and was like, "Can I come in?" I'm like, "Duh, come in. You're fine. We just got here. I'm not like doing anything stupid yet." And she handed me something and she started to walk out of the room. In fact, she got all the way out of the room with the door almost all the way shut before I went, "Hey, wait a minute, where's my hug?" Because she is the one person in my life that I give hugs to. And she goes, she had this look of horror on her face when she came back in to give me the hug, going, "I don't just hug you. Nobody just hugs you." So like she knows my boundaries enough to just being like, "What is wrong with you for even saying that?" So I keep my boundaries. Now, on the other hand, if you're in a relationship with someone and you say, "You know what, on Thursdays, I don't want you to come anywhere near me. I'm going to be doing something else." It isn't relationship time. First of all, what are you smoking? I would love to know because that is stupid. Second of all, good luck with your breakup. Because I'm not saying having a girls' night out isn't something you shouldn't have. Although going out and getting drunk and having all those people around, I don't know. That's not a me thing. That sounds like an environment where you could go cheat on accident. Technically. I don't really keep that as an excuse for cheating. Never. But if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're telling them, "I don't want you talking to me at all on a certain day," good luck. Just good luck. Because that's not how relationships work. That's not a boundary. That's you being something selfish, whatever. But if you go to work and you're supposed to work from 9 to 5, let's do the Dolly Parton song, right? If you're supposed to work from 9 to 5 and your boss comes up to you and says, "I need you to stay a half hour later because of whatever." Me, myself, and I work for myself, so I don't have to say that. I just get to work anyway. But okay, are you going to pay me overtime? Is this going to be PTO? Is this going to be something else? Because you're not going to pay me an extra 30 minutes on my paycheck. So how are we going to figure this out? Because you need to be compensated for all of your time, not just some of your time. That, and then if you do it the first time for a half hour, what is he going to ask for the next time? It's going to be an hour and a half.
Boiling the frog. Here we go.
Yep.
Yep.
And little by little, because that's how managers work. That's how people work. They're like, "Oh, I can't get you to do this big, huge thing right off the bat. Now, can I?" That's how abuse works. That's how any of that stuff works. They start off tiny so that they kind of mold you into this person that thinks, "Oh, staying a little bit after work is just being a team player." How much extra is on your plate and not on somebody else's plate because you were asked to be a team player?
Or you volunteer for one committee and then they assume that you volunteered for all the committees
Yeah.
because you put your hand up once. And maybe you put your hand up because you were feeling pressured to put your hand up.
Mhm.
You didn't really want to, but now it's assumed that, oh, so and so always says yeah. We'll just put them on the next committee. And then suddenly you have no bandwidth to do your real job because you've been volunteered or voluntold.
Voluntold.
Exactly. Voluntold. And you can't feel that you can say no because again you have that feeling of I can't let the team down or my boss will get mad at me or
I could get fired if I say no. But here's some advice. If you're doing all those little extras and your boss has a conniption fit because you finally say no to an extra thing and tries to fire you, go to a lawyer. I don't care if you're at a job that can fire you at the drop of a hat for no reason. That's not exactly true. I don't care what state you're in. It is called illegal as hell for them to decide, "Oh, they volunteered for 5 committees and they do 5 hours after work every day, but they didn't want to do this one extra thing, so I fired them." guess what? Even if they're an at-will employer, they can't fire you for saying no to an extra thing that is outside your pay range, outside your job description. It's illegal. It's called something that I can't remember. For some reason, my brain hurts. But go to a lawyer. If you get fired for any reason, go to a lawyer and make sure that they fired you correctly. Unless, of course, it's because you're stealing. I wouldn't recommend going to a lawyer then, because they could tell you that they could have sent you to jail for that. Leave them alone. That's my advice to you for that. But if you feel like you're in the right, like you feel that you've done and they just fired you because, go to a lawyer. Don't just feel like, oh, they did that and I just had to live with it. Not really. Yes, you're going to have to find another job, because no, going back to that job is not something you would want to do. It's not going to happen. Even if that guy got fired, everybody knows that you got hired back because you threw a hissy fit. But burnout is one of those things that it creeps up on you because you have joined so many committees. You're the birthday person. You have to find a card and a cake for each person's birthday, and the retirement person. So anybody who's retiring, you have to know that information. And then you get told to be the one who does the pizza party every quarter. You just keep piling all those little extras on. Plus your job, everybody starts pushing off the little things onto you. And now your bigger parts of your job you can't do because you have absolutely no time. And so now you're staying after work for hours at a time. You get home, maybe stuff your face if you're lucky and awake enough. And you go to sleep and you start all over the next day. That's not a way to live a life.
No, and definitely if you're not doing your main job, then they can say you're not doing your job properly, right? Come for your performance evaluation and you're like, and now I'm stuck in the same job forever because I can't get a promotion because I'm too busy doing the things that aren't in my job description. And that can wear and tear at you as well. So you'll watch other people who aren't on all these extra things that you're doing start leapfrogging ahead of you as well. And I've certainly had clients tell me that too.
Yeah, you can't do all of the things that your performance eval says that you can do if you're so worried about when somebody's retiring or when that person's birthday is or when their anniversary is. So some places do those. Even if they don't have somebody who keeps track of birthdays, maybe they have somebody who does other special little chores that nobody else wants to do. And once you become the captor of all of those little things that nobody else wants to do, maybe you're the one who's best at editing everybody else's presentations. Maybe you're the one who makes the prettiest slides, so they come to you and are like, hey, I did this, can you make it pretty? Or there's 1,001 things where if you're in a group environment, you could end up being, just like in high school, the only one in the group doing most of the work, right? Or 100% of the work.
Oh, those group projects in high school. Oh, yes.
In college, they weren't any better.
They were not. They were not.
I got a project in one of my colleges where I had to work with a group of people to do a project, and 2 of us did it. We completed it. All 10 people who were supposed to be in the group got the points for it. But we were idiots and we read the first part wrong, so we did it a little wrong. And every single one of those messaged me and were like, how come you didn't do it right? I don't know. How come you didn't help? Maybe you could have read it differently than we did. But group projects suck. But when you're the one who does all the work and then you have, hey, like I just said, people coming up to you later going, oh, I didn't like how you did that. You could have done better. Like, why didn't you actually read the assignment correctly? I don't know. Why didn't you do the assignment?
That plays out in the real world with management. If you do a good job, management takes credit for your success. If you do a bad job, management throws you under the bus. Yes. So it's interesting how high school politics still play out in corporate life, right? It's what we all learned in high school, as you said, the pecking order with the popular kids and the not popular kids. I don't know, in some ways, we don't change a lot of those identities.
It doesn't change its spots.
I think it's more like onions. We grow skins over skins, but deep down, there's still a core there, right? And it's challenging to...
Still smells and will make you cry.
Very much that. I love that. I don't love it, but I do love it. Yeah.
Burnout is one of those things that can be prevented from ever happening if, one, you do your job. You do your job. And if you must take on extra things, you tell them, sure, as soon as I get promoted or as soon as I get a raise, I'd be happy to do that. If you become too essential in the job you're in, they will never promote you because they will have to find a new person to do that too. And they're not going to from the people who are already there. So if you become irreplaceable where you're at, you're stuck. You're not moving anywhere. And it's not because you're not doing a good job. It's because you're doing too good of a job and they can't replace you from that spot without hiring probably more than one person to deal with it, depending on how much you take on your shoulders. You build a pyramid on your back and they're just going to keep walking up and down it and giving you assignments.
I had a colleague who ended up leaving the company due to health reasons. And when she never shared exactly what she was doing workload wise. And she was doing the work of 3 people because I became one of the 3 people that picked up part of her workload. And I ran into her and I was like, why didn't you tell anybody how bad it was? And I didn't feel like it was safe to tell people. I felt like I would be let go if I said I could do it. And she was doing the work of 3 people and her health took a huge hit. And yep, and now she works for herself because I'm not going to let that happen to me again.
It's
My
hard to come
hours.
back from that.
Yeah, it is.
Do I recommend everybody become a owner of their own company? No, because some people can't handle it. Just as simple as that. Some people cannot handle it because they would not actually do any of the tasks. Some people think they're super brilliant and they're super not. Everybody who has ever worked in any kind of environment where you were in a group of any kind, you know that there are people. My sister deals with it all the time. She has somebody she works with who will come to her with questions, and that girl works for the company longer than my sister. Shouldn't you know this by now?
Well, if his sister keeps giving the answers, then she doesn't have to. She knows that she can get the answers, right? There's people that use other people as their shortcuts. If your sister said, no, I don't have the answer, you'll have to go figure it out. Either she'd find a new guinea pig or she might have to figure it out.
Yeah. She might come to that conclusion one of these times. But so far it's been, since they're in the same little grouping, 3 of them with one boss, then if she doesn't say something and it doesn't get done right, she's the one who has to fix it. So
it's a problem of those group projects yet again. Yeah. That's that. I got to keep the life raft going or we're all going to drown. Yes. No. And that's hard. It's right. Because the people who have that responsibility that keep it going forward, they end up carrying all the work, right? And it shows, right?
She had to put out her work to 4 different people when she had her kid, and that was 5 years ago, and she's still at the same company because none of the skills she's learned at this company are transferable to another one. I don't even know the name of the company. Don't come at me. I don't even know what she does because she's not allowed to tell me. So there's that. But I don't know. Doesn't really matter. The job she's at is one of those places where the skills are not transferable. So she hasn't been able to find anything. Do I think she could do other stuff? Yes. But she has to get there first.
And she has to believe that she can do it too, right? Like it's like you said, being the entrepreneur. Oh, like me doing all the hats, right? Like you learn to do the marketing, you learn to do the sales, you learn to do the admin, you learn to do the bookkeeping. And if you're not willing to learn it, then it's not for you, right? That part too. But
not only do you have to be able to learn it, you have to be able to do it well. Because you can't have
or at least 80%. I try to give myself permission to do it 80% because
and then you have a professional check your work, especially with the QuickBooks side of things, the bills.
If it comes down to money,
is one thing. Paying your bill and putting stuff into QuickBooks is one thing. That end of year tax stuff, you should not be doing that yourself if you have your own company. Now,
no, I come from a family of accountants and I rely on them because I'm like, yep, that's
your
why.
Job. Here you go.
Yep. Yeah, you're trained and I rely on you. But no, and again, that's also learning your limitations, right? That's the other thing is realizing, yeah, you can learn to do a lot of things, but after a while, do you want to do those things, or would you rather have an expert do them? So, but you don't know until you try it. And the other thing I find with entrepreneurship is you need to know to do it well enough to hand it off to somebody else and then you can say, okay, they're doing it how I'd like them to do it. But you wouldn't know that unless you did it yourself. There's that. So
Yeah, I've handed some things off to people and then went, yeah, that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that because now they're not doing what I want them to do, but I don't know how to tell them what I want them to do. And then that becomes a problem.
yeah, definitely.
Because now you're going to take whatever they give you and redo it, and they're going to get offended.
Yeah, training someone to take over a task to do it to the level you'd like it done. It will take twice the effort up front, but then it pays off. But you have to be willing to invest that effort up front for sure.
Yeah. So with your wellness coach side of things, do you have any tips about burnout?
Yeah, definitely. I would say feeling stress is natural, right? Like we are meant to deal with stress. The issue with burnout is when you get stuck in that stress cycle. I have a very neurotic dog, for example. So I take him for walks. He sees a strange dog coming towards him. He's straining at the leash, then he's snappy, then he's straining, like he's just all over the place. And then after the dog passes, he literally does this full body shake and he literally shakes off all the stress and then he carries on. And the problem with us humans is we're not good at shaking off the stress. It just lives in our system and it just adds and adds. So my program is called the Creative Reset because the idea is that through creativity, you're resetting yourself. Like you're figuring out what your boundaries are, what your priorities are, what you enjoy in life, right? Getting out of the autopilot. And I think that the greatest gift you can give yourself is just to spend time with yourself and just think about what you enjoy and figure out how to do more of it. And that's a simple thing, but nobody does it, right? We know that we know eating well helps us. We know working out helps us. We know getting fresh air helps us. And yet we ignore them because it seems too simple, right? But just taking that time, and creativity doesn't have to be like visual arts. Like for me, that's what I enjoy doing. That's what I do with my clients. But being creative for you could be gardening. It could be cooking. It could be singing in the showers, doing a play. There's creativity in a lot of different ways. And if you think of back to being a kid, you didn't say, oh, that kid's being so creative. No, we say that kid's having fun, right?
Yeah, I game. My thing is to go heal people and yell at them to get out of stuff because why does people have to stay standing and stuff?
Yeah, like it's just you need to find an outlet that lets you get your stress out and fills up. I have an exercise called filling your cup. And basically, you literally draw a cup shape and you draw things that light you up, that you enjoy, and you fill your cup. And then you look at the cup and you're like, I haven't done any of these things in ages. Read a book? What do you mean? And it's just, again, it's that taking a moment to reflect on what sparks joy, what relaxes you, what do you need more of, or suddenly realizing I like spending time with people. I haven't gone anywhere and seen anybody in months. Like it's because you just get in a pattern, right?
Stuck in a rut.
You get stuck in a rut. And sometimes even just the exercise of putting it on paper and staring at it and going, holy cow, I haven't done any of these things. And yet I say that these light me up and I'm not doing them, right? So there's a lot of things that bubble up subconsciously that if you give time to actually pay attention to, your answers are there. It's just we're not very good at listening to ourselves often.
Yeah. Suck at it. I know I suck at it. My knee will start hurting and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And I can't not work because my knee hurts or my hip is doing stupid. But having multiple problems with your body is a thing. But we have to learn to live with our bodies. We have to learn how to do things. And if our mind is the thing that is, playing tricks on us, we have to figure that out and we have to move from there. So if your brain is tricking you that you're perfectly fine and you're stressed out, there's probably a problem there. You are probably going into burnout territory and you need to figure out something quick because you don't want to keep it going. Again, it will compound itself. You're going to light that frog on fire bit by bit until he is frog raw.
It's interesting when I was doing science in school, and yeah, I don't even know if they still do this experiment anymore, but we used to have to dissect a frog and you hooked it up to this little electrode and it would twitch their leg muscle. Yeah, this was also late 90s science.
Okay,
And
so because my school was brand new, we were in trailers in ninth grade when I took my biology class, and we didn't have to dissect anything. They started dissecting stuff once we were in our school. In 10th grade, we finished it halfway through ninth grade, but they weren't prepared to do anything. So 10th grade for me, anybody who was taking biology had to dissect animals, and I went because my asthma couldn't do the formaldehyde anyway. I'd have failed that. Instead, I got to pass science biology with a 98%. So
without having to do that's a
without
nice
having
trick.
to chop or slice or whatever into anything. Thank goodness, because I can't. My asthma is triggered by smells. Guess what formaldehyde is? It's a very strong smell.
These weren't even what I call pickle frogs. These were frogs that the psych lab down the hall had used for their experiments, and they were done with them. So they gave us these, quote, freshly dead frogs. And
okay, your school
yep,
was maybe a little psychotic.
it's a university. It was first year biology. Oh, yeah. But yeah, we had to hook up these frogs to these little electrodes and watch their leg twitch. And then the fire alarm went off and we had to leave the building. And we came back like a couple hours later, and these poor little frog legs were still twitching because the electricity was still going. And it was just like, and that's the problem with stress. It will twitch you until you physically remove the stressor. And it just, I always think about it when, yeah, because our system runs on electrical signals. Our brain fires with electrical signals. So just imagine you've hooked up your poor little brain to these little electrodes that don't stop stimulating it. And eventually, coming back to the boiling the frog, you're going to boil your brain, right? You've exercised it
that
past the point of
electricity is
restraint.
going to do it. You ain't got to add water. You just electrified that sucker.
Yeah. And so definitely I would say you got to figure out what your triggers are too, right? That's the other thing, is start identifying where these stressors, identify them, see if you can say no to them or put them off or give them to somebody else or get help, right? There's only 24 hours in the day, right? And technically 8 of those should be for sleep. So, when you start, that's another exercise I do with the women in my group, is we draw a 24-hour time clock, and you draw it as like, where's all your time going? Oh, look, none of it's for you. None of it's for rest. You filled up your whole day with tasks. There's no room for self-care, is a joke. So it's not until they draw it out and they're like, I totally have a clock that's out of proportion and it's not possible.
Yeah, you can't keep running on fumes. Eventually the fumes catch fire. And if you've ever seen a gas station blow up, that's probably about the look of things once burnout gets to a certain point and your brain just goes.
Yeah, that floating dumpster fire. Yes.
Yeah, that too.
Yes.
Yeah.